Prodigal Father, Prodigal Son. A Christian fiction filled with suspense, drama, redemption, and divine intervention. Every story holds a spark, but only a few shine bright like diamonds, filled with lessons, hope, and transformation. Welcome to Enny's Diamond Stories, where every tale is a journey of faith, redemption, and inspiration. Are you ready to be captivated? Then sit back, relax, and let's dive into a world of unforgettable stories that will touch your heart and uplift your spirit. Hello, amazing friends. I'm so excited to have you here at Enny's Diamond Stories. This is a special place where storytelling meets purpose, bringing you soul-stirring Christian fiction, inspiring tales of second chances, and powerful lessons wrapped in engaging narratives. Our stories are more than just entertainment, they are messages of hope, faith, and transformation for anyone seeking light in the midst of life's challenges. Whether you love suspense-filled stories, uplifting dramas, or heartfelt journeys of redemption, you've found the right place. The story opens during a violent thunderstorm in the small town of Elm Creek. Inside a dimly lit house, Joshua Rivers, a wealthy businessman in his late 50s, paces nervously. His son, Caleb, hasn't come home for 2 days. Joshua's wife, Martha, prays silently in the corner, but Joshua refuses to join her. "God abandoned me long ago," he mutters. Flashback to 20 years earlier. Joshua was once a devoted Christian and a loving father. However, after a series of business failures and personal tragedies, including the death of his younger son, he turned away from God and became a hardened, self-made businessman. Present day. Caleb, a 21-year-old rebellious college dropout, finally returns home, disheveled and defiant. Joshua confronts him, demanding to know where he's been. Caleb reveals he was partying in the city, gambling away money from Joshua's safe. A fierce argument erupts. Caleb declares, "I'm leaving for good," before storming out. Martha pleads with Joshua to go after Caleb. Joshua refuses, calling Caleb a lost cause. He recalls how he himself struggled as a young man and believes Caleb must learn the hard way. Caleb arrives in the city and quickly becomes ensnared in a lifestyle of partying, gambling, and substance abuse. He meets a group of shady friends who introduce him to dangerous habits. While sitting at a rundown bar, Caleb meets an older man named Daniel, who seems out of place. Daniel talks about second chances and warns Caleb about the dangers ahead. Caleb brushes him off. Weeks pass, and Caleb's life spirals downward. His money runs out, his new friends abandon him, and he becomes homeless. He remembers his father's harsh words and feels lost. Back in Elm Creek, Joshua's business faces a sudden crisis. His biggest client backs out, and he faces potential bankruptcy. This unexpected downfall shakes him to his core. Joshua, once proud and self-reliant, is forced to sell his luxury car and fire several employees. Martha suggests they turn to God for help. Joshua remains silent but begins to reflect. Caleb, now at his lowest point, sleeps in an alley. Cold, hungry, and broken, he whispers a desperate prayer, "God, if you're real, help me." The next morning, Daniel reappears, offering Caleb food and a place to stay. Caleb reluctantly accepts. Daniel shares his testimony, revealing he was once a prodigal, too. Joshua has a vivid dream. He sees himself standing in a barren desert, calling out for Caleb. A voice tells him, "Go find your son before it's too late." Joshua wakes up in a sweat, convinced that God is telling him to find Caleb. For the first time in years, he prays for guidance. Joshua drives to the city, retracing the possible places Caleb might have gone. He visits shelters and soup kitchens, showing Caleb's photo. A homeless man at a shelter recognizes Caleb's picture. "He was here last week," the man says. Encouraged, Joshua presses on. Meanwhile, Caleb grows under Daniel's mentorship. Daniel urges him to return home and seek forgiveness. Back in Elm Creek, Martha organizes a prayer chain at church, asking for prayers for both Joshua and Caleb. Joshua narrowly misses Caleb at a soup kitchen. Feeling frustrated, he nearly gives up. But a pastor at the kitchen encourages him, saying, "God never gives up on his children." Caleb finally decides to return home but is afraid of how his father will react. Daniel gives him a Bible and a hug. "God will be with you," he says. At a bus station, Joshua and Caleb unexpectedly cross paths. Shocked, they stare at each other for a moment before Caleb breaks down, sobbing, "Dad, I'm sorry." Joshua pulls Caleb into a tight embrace. Tears stream down both their faces as Joshua whispers, "Welcome home, son." Joshua and Caleb return to Elm Creek. Martha welcomes them with open arms, tears of joy streaming down her face. Caleb begins rebuilding his life. He joins a local church and finds a job through a church member. Joshua starts attending church again. He stands up during a service and shares his testimony, acknowledging how God never gave up on him or Caleb. Joshua's business begins to recover. New clients come in, and he attributes the success to God's grace. Caleb grows spiritually and emotionally, becoming a mentor to other young men in the church who have struggled with addiction and rebellion. Caleb visits the city to thank Daniel, but he finds the shelter closed. A staff member says, "There's no one named Daniel here." Caleb realizes that Daniel might have been an angel sent to guide him. Joshua and Caleb begin working together at the family business. Their bond strengthens as they rebuild both their relationship and the business. The family hosts a celebration at church to thank God for His mercy and grace. Caleb gives a heartfelt speech, encouraging others not to lose hope. Martha reflects on how God answered her prayers, filling her heart with gratitude. Caleb faces temptation when an old friend from the city contacts him. He struggles but ultimately turns to God for strength. Joshua is offered a shady business deal that could make him rich. He resists, determined to remain honest. Caleb feels called to ministry, helping troubled youth avoid the mistakes he made. Caleb and Joshua start a mentorship program for at-risk youth, using their story to inspire others. The family faces another crisis when Martha falls ill. They cling to their faith, trusting God for healing. Martha recovers, and the family praises God for His healing touch. Caleb baptizes several young men he mentored. Joshua watches with tears of pride and joy. Joshua reflects on how God redeemed his life and his family. He vows to leave a legacy of faith for future generations. The story ends with Joshua, Martha, and Caleb gathered around a dinner table, giving thanks to God. The storm that once surrounded their lives has passed, and peace has returned. Here are some powerful lessons to learn from Prodigal Father, Prodigal Son. 1. God's grace is always available. No matter how far you stray, God's grace and love remain constant. Both Caleb and Joshua turned away from God, but He never abandoned them. Like the prodigal son in the Bible, they found redemption when they humbled themselves and returned to Him. 2. Forgiveness restores relationships. Forgiveness is a powerful tool for healing. Joshua and Caleb's relationship was broken, but forgiveness brought them back together. Holding on to anger only deepens the pain, but letting go opens the door for restoration. 3. Prayer is powerful. Martha's unwavering prayers were a crucial part of the story. Even when things looked hopeless, she prayed faithfully, trusting God for her family's healing. Her prayers helped guide both Joshua and Caleb back on the right path. 4. We all have second chances. Both Joshua and Caleb had fallen, but God gave them a second chance. The story reminds us that failure is not final. God offers us new beginnings when we repent and trust Him. 5. Trust God, not your own strength. Joshua's downfall began when he relied solely on his own strength and wisdom, rejecting God. His restoration started when he humbled himself and turned back to God. The lesson here is to always seek God's guidance instead of leaning on your own understanding. 6. God sends help in unexpected ways. Daniel's role in Caleb's life shows how God sends help through people, or even angels, when we need it most. Be open to recognizing divine intervention, even in unexpected forms. 7. Temptation is a lifelong battle. Caleb's journey highlights how temptations don't disappear after one victory. He faced new challenges even after returning home. Staying close to God and building a strong support system helps overcome these battles. 8. God can turn our mess into a message. Caleb's transformation from a reckless, rebellious son to a mentor and spiritual leader shows how God can use even the darkest moments in our lives for His glory. Our struggles can become a testimony that inspires others. 9. Reconciliation brings joy and peace. The reunion of the family demonstrates that reconciliation not only brings peace but also deep joy. Letting go of pride and bitterness can open the door to healing and happiness. 10. Faith requires action. Joshua's journey reminds us that faith isn't passive, it requires action. He had to take steps of faith to find Caleb, rebuild his business, and restore his family. Faith, paired with obedience, leads to transformation. Every story we share here is a reminder that no one is too far gone for God's love. Just like the characters in these tales find hope and healing, you too can experience the beauty of new beginnings. Thank you for being part of this incredible journey. Remember, God's grace is the thread that weaves all our stories together, yours, mine, and those we tell. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss another inspiring tale from Enny's Diamond Stories. Share this with your friends and family, because everyone loves a story that brings hope and joy. Stay blessed, stay inspired, and see you in our next story.